August 2nd, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. Go down in the descriptions below. You can see where I thought I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. Everything's timestamped. There was only one piece of economic data that came out today at 5:15 a.m. Pacific Standard. It was the ADP Non-Farm Payroll, which happened around right here, around 5:15. It can be debatable as whether that actually causes sell-off or not, but right around that time, it was already kind of in a sell-off, and then prices continued to sell off. It looked like there was just kind of one big leg down and then a consolidation, kind of a choppy looking trading range. It was a little strange. I went back and looked it over and over again, but right after about 9:30 Pacific Standard to about 12:30, I didn't see very many good clean setups or high probability setups, unfortunately, and I saw some kind of earlier in the day. So I will be comparing notes with other traders to kind of see if they saw setups in here. I saw definitely there were second entries, but not second entries that I would be considering high probability. They would have been riskier. So it looked like there was kind of this dry desert of price action right here that didn't really yield too many clean setups that I liked. So I'm going to go into the trades now. So this is a pre-market. It was kind of strange that in the overnight, so this is actually yesterday at at around 3 o'clock. Let's see, right about here. This is actually about 3 o'clock Pacific Standard. Markets opened and it had this big gap down, just unexplained. There was no real news to explain why this huge gap came down. Then it chopped around. This is the pre-market highs and lows, and as you're going to see, the pre-market highs and lows really weren't anything that came into play, especially the highs. The lows, you could argue maybe there was a bounce, kind of a support, but it really wasn't that big of a market player. So then prices, when they opened, they started selling off. And originally I was thinking it was prices are going to be in this channel. And it looked like it was just kind of chopping in here. These are very small candles, kind of just oscillating. The first setup I saw, there was a consolidation down here. The first setup I saw was this new low here. Became a first entry short, pulls back, makes a second entry short, and then it fails. Now this failure occurred on the same candle that formed the second entry short because it's actually first entry short, second entry short. So this green candle confirms the second entry short. Let me just go ahead and zoom in. Confirms the second entry short, and then also kind of fails. I think the failure is confirmed on this candle. So it happened rather quickly. And it's also kind of like bouncing off the bottom of this ascending channel. So it's a little hard to say if this is a worthwhile trade, and it was. I think it was just better to just wait for a confirmation higher low. You don't get a higher low. Technically, this is the higher low here, but it feels too far away from the trade now. The prices continue chopping. I see a potential fail breakout here. Actually, originally I had my trading range tighter, about like this. So I saw this as a potential fail breakout as it was coming back into the trading range. The problem with this setup is the trading range is pretty tight. And I did see it's a possible first entry long for the high here, first entry long, potential second entry long setting up. But I wanted this candle to have closed inside and back inside this range to feel a little bit more confident. Then the trigger bar happens, which is this doji here. It doesn't give me much confidence because when the trigger bar doesn't flash back up into the trading range that I thought was a range, it makes me a little bit hesitant because I'm wondering if it's going to actually bounce and come back down. It might be a failed breakout pullback, but I don't know. So by the time this one happens, it also doesn't really flash up confidently. So I just kind of had to just abandon the trade at that point. And then it looks like if you did take that trade, it would have worked. And price action comes back down. I see this, the new high, first entry long, second entry long. There's a second entry long, and at this point, I was wondering if it was going to fail because I did draw this larger yellow line here. I touched it from here, one touch, two touch. Technically makes a third contact, and this is actually the fourth one. The bottom I wasn't really sure of, but the bottom really isn't that important right now in regards to this trade. It just is more important that this is a potential resistance and a potential rejection point. So when I saw this, I would have wanted this candle actually closed a little bit lower, and even though the EMA is flattening out, it's creating kind of a weird conflicting idea. Even though the EMA isn't the end all be all, it is showing that prices are being squished by this downward trend, but the EMA is also just kind of chopping through the center of price these price candles. So even though it doesn't matter too much if it's in a range, my range isn't very clean. So I'm not 100% sure if the EMA is actually going to act as a support or resistance, because there have been some times when it looked like it acted as support, maybe right here, and then of course when it was resistance. It's a little hard for me to know. Had this candle actually closed more bearish down below the EMA, I would have felt more confident that this failure is more likely, because you just had stacking up more reasons to take a short. But here you have reasons to take a short and a reason not to take a short. It turns out it would have worked, because you would have had your entry, let's say down here, flash down, and then you probably would have gotten your quick scalp down here. Let's continue moving down. Goes into what I think this might be another channel. The consolidation here, I didn't quite draw it because it wasn't anything in here trade worthy, because it was just too tight a range. As you can tell, this is just about one, maybe 1.5 point range. So it's hard to try to get a scalp out of that. Let's continue chopping down. Consolidates again and is slowly creeping back up. And now it touches the top of the trading channel again, this descending channel. And I'm wondering if this is truly going to hold now, because this looks like it has a pretty strong push up. So I don't see any good setup that I like. I have to wait. Of course, it flashes down and it closed actually below the EMA. When this happened, I was considering taking a trade. It wasn't really a clean setup, because you do have a new low here. Technically, you got a first entry short here, second entry short here. However, if you counted it in a bigger global scene, you could probably say it as one leg right here, push up, this is first entry short, then this is the second entry short. But I wasn't too sure, because it's also going to be just considered one big leg, so I just left it alone. Prices continue moving down. I did see a lower high. So this made me confident that, okay, this lower high, potentially this resistance is going to keep prices down. So when I saw this as a first entry short, second entry short, or first entry short, second entry short, third entry short, technically we don't trade, or I don't trade third entries, but I see this as a potential lower high. It looked like the line here is rejecting. So I actually entered. I didn't enter fast enough though, because I was waiting to see what this candle would do, and it flashed it down. Now I decided that, hey, this is an entry that I want. I actually put my candle entry one tick below this guy. Excuse me. I misremembered. I actually kept it one tick below. No, I kept it at the same low as here. You can actually see the tiny little arrow where I took my short right here. And I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to enter. Prices are coming down. I failed to take into account that, first, number one, I already missed the trade. I've waited too long. Again, if this was more bearish, I probably would have jumped in earlier on this candle, but now I'm already two candles away. On top of that, it's creating a micro support here. So taking a short here is riskier. But I thought, okay, well, I was chasing the trade slightly. And in hindsight, I think I should have skipped it, because after this formed, I should have just realized the scalp has already been made. I should leave it alone. Drops around, and of course it stops me out. So it reverses back up, it stops me out. You actually have a new entry here. Excuse me, not a new entry, new high here. First entry long, second entry long. I'm thinking this, if this holds, it's a second entry long failure. Right here, flashes all the way down. Now this candle is actually the same size as this candle, except this one closed extremely bearish. So I thought, okay, this is going strong down. EMA isn't really helping me out, but it is shorting right into support of this smaller, tighter trading range. So I had to wait for potentially a lower high confirmation. It flashes through, and I think I have a lower high confirmation coming up, because I got a new high, first entry long, second entry long, failed second entry long. Here, when it flashes up and it came back down, I decided, hey, this candle is probably going to push through, because it broke through this range now. And I decided to take the entry. See, it's actually right here. You can actually, it's hard to see the red and magenta, but I have a little magenta arrow here. I put it one tick below here. It actually flashed down, danced around. I dropped my order, came back, picked me up, and then closed very bearish. Then almost corrected back up, and then it flashed down. You can see where this blue arrow is. This is where I took my exit, and that's actually the second trade. So the first trade was red, stopped out. Second trade was green, so kind of made back the loss that I had. I did trade it as a little bit larger share size with a runner. and my runner actually got stopped out here, but this one trade did cancel out the loss of this trade. The prices continue moving down. It's falling and coming down on this tighter range. I'm kind of watching carefully, leaving things alone at right now because it's not coming back to the EMA. The validity of this descending channel is still in question because it does have confirmations bound here, but on the top side it's a little bit not as clean. On top of that, it doesn't really create very clean second entries. Looks like it's bouncing. It creates kind of this micro support here. It comes up, hits the EMA, and now it's being rejected. So up until that point, EMA has been kind of holding prices down, but it has had price action, had enough momentum and strength to break above it. This time it looks like it's holding prices down. Then it flashes up. So I had to kind of abandon that idea that the EMA is going to act as some kind of resistance yet. But it chops around. And this is actually where I take my third trade. I see a new high here, first entry long, pulls back. I'm thinking there's a second entry long potentially setting up here because it's a very strong bullish bar. I like it. There's enough room to this descending resistance here. And I was thinking it's a good signal bar, even though the EMA is flat. It's the first break of the shortened trend channel. So as it broke out, and I'm thinking it's going to come back up and test the high. So I enter right here. I'll admit that I'm pushing it against the potential already top here. And I was fortunate it came back up and let me take my exit here. And it flashed up and it hits this. I definitely wanted to exit before I potentially reached this line here. And it flashed back down. It touches this, so I think there's potentially a trading range here now, at least for sure a support here. Comes back up. This is actually where I take my fourth trade. So it's actually new low here, first entry short, second entry short. The second entry short, I'm wondering if the EMA is going to have a rejection bounce off because this is now a clean break of this big yellow line here. I'm not necessarily sure there's a reversal, but I did see is one leg up, pull back, and then the second leg. And of course, this orange line creating a measure move came in a little bit later, but I thought it's one leg up, pull back, second leg up, pulling back. And here it flashes up, and I jumped in a little early because you can see it closed. It opened down here. It never really broke below the open, and it closed below the high. So this made me a little nervous that I thought, okay, I think I was definitely a little bit early on this, but I was looking for a test of this high after this breakout of this channel. It kind of chops around. It creates the second entry long. So again, new high here, first entry long, second entry long. Now my entry here, in order for me to get my scalp, I actually have to scalp out at the same high as this. Now, if I took an entry here on the second entry long, taking one tick above, I'd actually have to be one tick above this high, which would have made me a little bit unsure. But when I saw the second entry long, kind of confirmed that this price might actually have some momentum, some teeth pushing back up, it made me feel confident to stay in this trade. Now, technically, when I enter a trade, I try not to exit and just let the trade play out. But if it chops too long sideways, then I might just not scalp, but just scuttle the trade. But here, it again gave me confidence that the trade was probably going to be a little bit enough to at least make me get my scalp. And then I was able to scalp out right here. And then prices continue moving up. So I just see one leg up, pull back, a second leg up. It didn't quite make the measure move. It comes flying back down, flashes down, and it comes back up. So this is a larger view. First entry long. Technically, your second entry longs here, but I didn't really like the setup. It's really choppy here. I drew this descending channel here. It looks like it's respecting it by one touch, two touch, three touch, but the bottom isn't confirmed. Breaks out, has an overshoot, and I'm wondering if it's going to break and at least touch the other side, but there's a consolidation happening here, and it looks like there's a triple test forming. 1, 2, 3. Breaks down below, and then kind of reverses back up. I'm wondering if the EMA is going to act as resistance. It doesn't quite act as resistance, and it just kind of flashes up, comes up. And now I also see another, well, this is where I also call the triple test because I counted this as one touch. It's pretty close together, and the second touch, and potentially a third touch. I also saw new high here, first entry long, second entry long. But I don't like the signal bar here. It's no good. It's too bearish. And there's not enough room to scalp to the EMA. So I had to leave it alone. Looks like it would have worked though, but in real time, it's a little bit hard to trust it 100% for sure because you'd have to base it on the strength of this triple test. And I wasn't sure of the strength of that triple test. So it then flashes up, chops around, moves up, breaks out of this short trend channel, already breaches the high. So I'm thinking the uptrend might have played out, comes back down, hops around, and it actually makes a second attempt, and it actually pushes even higher. So it's actually break, one attempt up, it completes it, comes back down, and then makes a second attempt up. Prices continue dropping, and then it kind of falls in this ugly channel, which I'm not even sure it's a good channel, because you do have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. This is a good signal bar, but it felt just weird price action, just a little congested. And prices continue moving up, hops around. From this point on to about 12:30, I don't see any real clean, confident second entries that I would have liked. Technically, there's a new low here, first entry short, pulls up, comes back down. Now, on a smaller time frame, you could probably see this as a new low here, definitely first entry short, pulls up, comes back down, and then this could be thought of as a second entry short, but it's just too congested here. So I wasn't sure what I was looking at, so I left it alone. Prices continue chopping. It just gets kind of ugly. Price action getting a little bit hard to read now, so I just had to be patient. It was chopping around some more. There's a new low here, first entry short, second entry short, but there's a terrible signal bar. You don't really get a higher low confirmation, so if you leave it alone, you have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. Same reason. This is a terrible signal bar to try to go long off of, and then it just kind of gets whippy again. You do have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. It's the same reason that I don't want to take a trade, because this isn't a very confident signal bar. On top of that, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't have any other key entry points for you to want to take a trade. And it kind of chops around again, and it gets a little bit hard to read. Not hard to read, but hard to determine a direction. I did see a final setup here. It's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. This is a good signal bar. Unfortunately, it's too far from the EMA, and technically there is enough room to scalp out. It's too far from the EMA, but the problem also is there's only 10 minutes left in the day, and I don't want to take a trade with only 10 minutes left, because it just, I know usually the last 10 minutes of any of the days, there's a lot of trades being closed out, a lot of traders closing positions, rolling positions, and it gets a little bit unpredictable. So I just left it alone. So as I said, overall, the price action, most of it kind of looked like it happened a little bit earlier in the day, but then from about 9:30 on to about 12:30 for full 3 hours, I didn't quite see any clean setups that I could recognize as a potential entry. So hopefully that was helpful.